they might not even want you watching this. You only have to do one thing to break the spell of your limiting beliefs. One step, and that one step leads to another and another and another. But you only have to take your first step once. So how do you change a limiting belief that's been holding you back? I'm not a fan of the toxic positivity crew. They can get in the bin. That's not who we are here. Most people never ever question their limiting beliefs. They don't sit down with themselves and think, I'm behaving this way because there's a limiting belief that's run riot in my brain right now. They just don't do it. And that leaves opportunity when we don't go questioning limiting beliefs. That leaves a door wide open for the limiting beliefs to go and behave and act in ways that aren't in your best interests. Imagine, right, you walked around the world and you wore glasses with a grey tint on them, okay? And off you go looking around the world. What happens is everything appears grey. The grey tinted glasses almost became unnoticeable. You didn't notice that you were wearing glasses anymore. It's the same with the beliefs. When we don't question them, when we don't check them, we're walking around the world as if something is the way that we think it is, as if our limiting beliefs are actually facts, are actually true, when in fact they're not. Now, I want to encourage you to challenge your limiting beliefs, get this spotlight onto them, really dig deep and say, right, what is it about you that thinks that you can run the show here? I want you to challenge them in a way where you say to yourself, you maybe ask yourself, where is it that I first learned this belief? Where did it come from? When did this start for me? And you don't have to be holding blame for anybody, all right? I'm not asking you to go and approach family members and say, by the way, see, age 6, you instilled a limiting belief in me that meant that I wasn't able to live up to my full potential. You've got some responsibility in this as well, by the way, right? But maybe the belief that you have about being selfish came from a belief that you have about helping people because you've always been the helper. Maybe a belief that you have about not feeling confident came from, well, where mine came from. Picture this. It's the year 1999. We're in Wellington Academy. Sit back. A workforce has come in to teach the young team how to be entrepreneurs, all right? And we were all sort of grouped off into different sections of with our year groups. I was in second year in high school, and off we went. And in this workshop, or in this day, I'll remember it like it was yesterday always, what we were to do was we were to come up with an idea to be entrepreneurs, all right? And the entrepreneurship that my team had chosen was to sell food. Sell certain food. And off we went doing it. I was a massive Tupac fan, massive Eminem fan, massive fan of rap, all right? And in my naive 14-year-old mind, I thought it would be a good idea to rap a menu, okay? So my whole year group are sat there watching our performance, or should I say my performance. In the way that my high school sort of theatre sat, it was like that theatre where all the seats came down right into the front, and here I was, this wee version of me at aged 14, just about to commit social suicide. And I stood there and I rapped the menu. And in the front row, and the row after that, and then I couldn't see much further back, all I heard was, oh my goodness, what is she doing? What is this? Oh my goodness, cringe. Oh, who does she think she is? This is so embarrassing. And I continued, and on I went with my rap, because if nothing else, I will follow through. I am a high achiever. I rapped that song, and I went and I sat down with the group of people that I came with. We didn't even win. And I sat down with a group of people that I'd spent the day with at this workshop, and every part of me just wanted the ground to swallow me up. Every single part. One other person can remember this, and she was my best friend from high school. And she will never tell a single soul that rap. Sometimes she raps it to me just to be a wee bit sassy, all right? But she will never tell another soul that, because I know too much about her, And if that got out, then so would her stuff. But what happened there in that day was that I decided that I would never, ever in my life, ever do any public speaking ever again. So for me, that limiting belief came as, I am not confident. I am not good at public speaking. I had decided from that day onwards that this would be the fate for me. My days of public speaking, done, gone, in the bin, off it went. Because I needed to feel safe. Because I needed for 14-year-old people not to be sitting in a crowd laughing at me. Because if I ever stood up to do any kind of public speaking again, the mortification, the remembrance, and all those wee cells that are inside me that say, oh, don't do it, they might laugh, you might make a fool of yourself, came as a limiting belief for me. So my fear of public speaking actually came from being 14 years old and deciding to rap in front of my peers. And to this day, whenever I go and do and deliver a workshop, my husband says these words to me, and I love them because it always, keeps me humble. He says these words, just you do you and you win. And then the next line, and remember, don't rap. And I won't ever rap again, I promise. I'm not good at it. I don't want you to fight with the beliefs that are holding you back, all right? I don't want you to get into the ring and kind of try and knock sense into them. But what I do want you to do is I want you to challenge them in a way that feels right for you, because something that feels right for me might not be the same for you. I want you to be gentle with yourself. I want you to be soft in this. I want you to, if you need it, kick your own arse and say, enough. Enough is enough. I've not got any time for this. All right? I want you to call yourself out on your own BS. This is holding me back because I feel a bit fear, and that's okay. But one step in the right direction, in the direction that means that it makes a meaningful difference for you in your life, can make all the difference. Can have you maybe in 6 months from now looking back and going, oh, do you remember that time when I believed that thought? Me. Or can you remember that time when I was 14 and I completed social suicide in front of a room of my peers? Not the same anymore, absolutely different life now. And if I did still believe that to be true, then I wouldn't be doing this today. But what I want to do together today is I want to encourage you to challenge those limiting beliefs, because when we challenge them, when we do put them under the spotlight, what we do get is information. What we do get is feedback. And I'd really like for you to be curious here and just bring curiosity to the table when we're talking about challenging the limiting beliefs that you might have. I want for you to start collecting evidence of times when it hasn't been true. So maybe collect some evidence to show if you have a limiting belief there that says something like, I'm not good at saying no because I struggle to set a boundary. Maybe a challenge that you can take to that limiting belief is, actually, hold on a wee minute. I said no at this point. I said no here. I didn't quite agree with this. And you'd be able to sort of prove, almost, again, providing those receipts that say, actually, hold on a wee minute, see here, I did it then, I did that. Because questioning the limiting beliefs is where the freedom comes from. And your brain, by the way, is absolutely amazing at recall. It can tell you of every time you've messed up, every time that you think that you've looked like an idiot, every single time that you've failed. It can also recall the times when you can call that limiting belief a bit of a liar. You can actually say, no, I proved you wrong here, I proved you wrong there. And that and there is where it comes. That's where that limiting belief can begin to, almost as if it's sort of kind of taking the legs from the chair, it begins to collapse it a little bit. It begins to make you feel a little bit softer around the beliefs that you've been holding about yourself. Now, something that I love is creating those bridges to beliefs. But that bridge to belief, or as I prefer to call it, positive considerations, is something that might help you. You can say all day, I am confident, I am very clever, I am excelling at learning French, which I am learning at the moment in Duolingo and definitely not excelling at. There is a part of us as well that turns around and, as I've said before, did you I? And there's a part of us that don't actually believe that belief to be true. I am excelling. Well, no, that's not true. And what I like is, I like this idea of having a bridge to make that belief true, or like I said, as I like to call it, a positive consideration. So it might be that you're running with a belief there that says, I'm not good enough. But what if we changed that to a consideration that sounded a little bit like, I am learning to accept whatever it is that you're feeling not good at. So what if the limiting belief that you've got is that I am not good at boundary setting? What we can do here is we can put that bridge or that kind of positive consideration in place where we say, hold on a minute. I am learning to set boundaries. I am learning to feel comfortable enough to say no. I am noticing that when I can, I'm able to take a moment, pause, consider, and then decide what I want to do and what's right for me. And that consideration there really does sort of stretch that belief a little bit, almost stretches it to the point where it goes, oh, hold on. And what the brain does is it says, well, they're not thinking the same belief. I'm not good enough, or I'm not setting boundaries, or I can't set boundaries, or whatever else. They're willing to get curious with this. You're willing to now take it to a point of saying, actually, let's see if something else can be true here too. Because it can be true that you might not think that you can set boundaries, absolutely. But it can also be true at the same time that you are willing to give setting boundaries a try. And what that does is it just expands it a little bit, and it allows for you to say, whoa, hold on, there's room for change here. And those tiny wee actions, they are the things that make it a bit different for you. They are the things that actually say, there's opportunity here for me to grow. You are not the same person that you were when you set up the belief that, for instance, you are not a good public speaker. I'm not the same person. I'm not 14 years old. I had to really get over that belief of fear of public speaking for doing my own job, for doing this, for example. And I had to turn around and say to myself, that was really blooming hard. I had to question that limiting belief of I'm not a good public speaker. Because see, before that limiting belief came, I was actually a good public speaker. I was somebody that wasn't afraid to stand up and speak in front of people. But that one thing, that one moment in time meant for me that I had decided that all of that was rubbish, when in fact, no, it wasn't. There was more proof that I did enjoy public speaking. Enjoy, I'll use that term loosely. That I was an overachiever and done what teachers asked me to do is probably the better way of putting it. But I ignored all of that evidence and I only went with that one piece. And that's not really fair, because if we're holding up the scales and we're sort of saying, all right, okay, you have this one experience here that says that you're not a good public speaker, but you have all of these experiences here that say that you have done it in the past and you've actually done okay at it, and the scales are tipping more for that kind of social experience of rejection or that social experience of real embarrassment. It's not fair for me to continue to believe that. So I had to actually go into the archives and I had to go searching for the proof. And that's where the belief gets challenged. It's in the proof. It's not in doing something 10 times. It's doing something once and then doing it once again and then doing it once again. Because if you are somebody who maybe is a people pleaser, all right, and maybe you decide, actually, hold on a wee minute, no, I can't quite make that, I'm really sorry. Or you don't even have to say sorry, I can't quite make that. You've proved once to yourself that you're able to do that. And let's just say somebody else asks something of you when you don't have anything left in your cup, you just don't have any room available to do it. And you say, do you know what, I'm not free for that. That's the second time you've done it. Great, good. Because now what you're doing is you're gathering evidence and you're gathering proof. You need to continue that momentum. Don't get me wrong, you don't want to be turning around there and just being somebody who is like, nope, not doing anything for anyone. There will be things that you want to do, but for the longest time, you've probably been running a program in your mind that is a belief that says, I must do this, because if I don't do it, then it might mean that I would lose the love, affection and care of the person that you're not doing it for. Not true. But if you can challenge it, if you can question it, if you can bring, for instance, that positive consideration to it, I am learning how to say no. I am learning ways that feel safe for me to consider putting my own needs first. That's not selfish. For anybody out there who's thinking it's selfish, it is absolutely not. And our beliefs must be challenged, because if they're not challenged, then they stop us from doing so much. Like I'd said earlier on, you are not the same person that set the beliefs that you set when you were much younger. You set those beliefs for one purpose: to keep you safe. That's why you set those beliefs. That's why I set the belief that I would never public speak again. And also, I'm so glad I did challenge it, because I enjoy this. I really do. And think of the things that you're missing out on when you don't challenge those limiting beliefs. Think of all the projects, the dreams, the chances, the jobs, the relationships, the places that you go to that you just have written off because you're believing a thought that was created maybe a long, long time ago. So challenge the belief. Put it under the spotlight. Build a bridge. Go and get over it. Come on. Most of all, be gentle with yourself. You are a work in progress.